Hey guys, this is Jen, and today I want to talk to you real quick just about the positive law citation and what it means. I've done a million videos on these, and new subscribers, they don't always like to go back and watch the old videos. So basically, this is going to be a quick rundown of the positive law citation, why we have it, and why it's important. So I'm going to show you an example of what the positive law citation looks like, and then I'll tell you what it says about the positive law citation, and I'll tell you what it means. So we're going to look at the Office of the Law Revision Council. You can find this website by Googling OLRC, Office of the Law Revision Council, United States Codes. Um, we look here and search and browse, and you have the list of titles. Now, these are titles. You see some has an asterisk. Some has an asterisk and some do not have an asterisk. So the one with the asterisk is the one that carries the positive law citation. Now, if we go down to Title 23, it has an asterisk, but you can't find the positive law citation in the front matter the way you can in other videos or in other titles. So what does that mean when it has an asterisk showing that it's got a positive law citation, but then you can't find it in the front matter the way you're supposed to? This means that the positive law citation is somewhere in the title, and it's only the things after the positive law citation that is actually positive law. Now, positive law means that it's actually a federal law. Without having a positive law citation, it's not a federal law. So it could be a state law, it could be a law for contractors, it could be a law for like the Federal Reserve Bank. For example, Title 12, Banks and Banking. The Federal Reserve Bank is not a part of the federal government. It's sort of a creature or creation of the federal government, which acts as public and private entity. Um, so the corporations are oftentimes allowed to write their own titles, but they can't have a positive law citation because they're not in compliance with the Constitution. And I like to mention here that Title 26, Internal Revenue Code, has no positive law citation. There's no place in any of its forms that they are requiring, quote unquote, requiring us to fill out and file with them to pay them our hard earned money that has an actual positive law citation, meaning that tax for some people is constitutional, tax for other people is contractual. Tax is in the Constitution, but the Constitution does not allow the federal government to tax state citizens directly or indirectly. They can tax the states, and they can contract with the states, and they can contract with people not part of the federal government and not required to pay a federal tax. The people who pay a federal tax are the people on the federal lands working for the federal government or the states or contractors, people who have a direct um, relationship with the federal government and its federal lands, such as contractors or those people who join the military or civil servants. They would pay a tax. So they're required to pay a tax, and that's in the Constitution. So we go back here to Title 1, and let's see what they say about the positive law citation, Chapter 3, Section 204A. Now, there's sort of a long little blurb about the positive law citation, but I really don't want to pay to any attention to anything in here other than this portion where it says, provided, however, that whenever titles of such codes shall have been enacted, because everything has to be enacted and it has to be enacted properly. The enacting clause means that it was properly enacted into law by authority of some organic law. So it could be the Constitution, which is an organic law enacted by the legislature of the United States, or it could be enacted by the Articles of Confederation using their enacting clause and by the authority of the United States of America, but it has to be enacted into positive law. The text thereof shall be, okay, so the text thereof shall be legal evidence. So it's legal evidence. Once they have a positive law citation on the front matter of the title, everything after that, everything within the title is said to have been properly enacted into law, and it's legal evidence. The positive law citation is legal evidence of the laws therein contained within the title in all the courts of the United States, okay, and the several states and the territories and insular possessions of the United States, okay, the states, territories, and possessions of the United States. Okay, now this is also a sort of funny little phrase, but I don't want to get into that because the United States is really just, according to the Constitution, two lands, which is the seat of government known as Washington, D.C., and the places purchased for military forts. That's what's in the Constitution. Now, they do have other lands, but we don't want to confuse the situation here and what we're talking about. So we're just going to talk about the positive law citation and the fact that the positive law citation shows the courts, the lawfully created courts of the United States, that that title has been properly enacted into law. Okay, so then we go down to Title II. Well, it has no positive law citation. So the Congress of the United States has no positive law citation. So this means that it has not been properly enacted into law and that the courts cannot see it as a law because there's no evidence of Title II Congress having been made properly and enacted into law. Okay, perhaps this is why Dr. Ron Paul says that the Constitution needs to be passed into law. Okay, but Title II, the way it stands, the way Congress is being run, they cannot pass it into law because it doesn't comply with the dictates of the Constitution. Okay, so then we go down to domestic security, agriculture, aliens and nationality, arbitration. So these three, one, two, three, not enacted into positive law. There's no evidence of Title VI, Title VII, Title VIII ever having been passed into law. Okay, so if you heard somebody singing, that was my little one. She likes singing in the shower. So Title 12, banks and banking. Banks and banking. So the Federal Reserve Bank writes its own laws and they pass it under Title 12, banks and banking, telling us what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. Now, everything that we sign is a contract. So this is just basically the title under banks and banking, um, telling us what kind of contracts they're going to be offering to us. And when we sign their papers, it becomes a law for individuals. So it's a law for me. Once I sign it, it's a law for you. Once you sign it, for someone who doesn't sign their papers or open an account with the bank, it doesn't apply to them. So if I go to a bank and I say, well, I'm not opening an account here, then they have nothing to do with me and they're not going to hold my money and I'm not going to go in and do business with them. But if I do open an account with them, I come under the laws, banks and banking. So we're all complaining about what's going on in the world today and what the banks are doing, and they're stealing our money and all that. Well, you signed the contract when you opened an account with them, saying that you're going to follow these laws, and they change them all the time. They reserve the right to change the laws. They reserve the right to not give you any rights when it comes to whatever rights they can take from you, because it's not part of the federal government. The federal government cannot take rights from people. They're supposed to protect our rights, but how are they protecting our rights? How are they doing the job, the thing that they were instituted for, when they open up a business that allows it to contract with us to take our rights. Commerce and trade under Title 15. Title 16, conservation. None of these are laws. Customs and duties, education, food and drugs, foreign relations and intercourse. Now, see Title 23. This is sort of a trick because Title 23 doesn't have a positive law citation. I can find no positive law citation in Title 23 highways. Hospitals and asylums, Indians, Internal Revenue Code. We're all paying taxes to what? The corporations, because the corporations get together and they decide how Title 26 is going to be written and how much money they're going to take from us. And then they funnel it to the federal government, who then turns around and funnels it to various other entities or programs or what have you. But if you go to reginfo.gov, you'll see some section on there. You'll have to do some searching on it, but you'll see some section on there where you can read the agenda, where these corporations got together and they made proposals on what they want Title 26 to say. Title 27, intoxicating liquors. People can't believe that intoxicating liquors was never actually passed into law. It's contract because you sign papers saying that you're going to be a person who sells or makes liquor. And once you sign those papers, you come under their contract law. The same with arms. You sign a contract on what arms you're going to sell, how you're going to sell them, how you're going to import them, and all that kind of stuff, then you're bound to the terms of the contract. Just like internal revenue. Once you sign the papers, you're bound to the terms of the contract, and the contract's written by the corporations, kind of goes through the federal government. The federal government offers these forms, they approve these forms or disapprove these forms. And then the Internal Revenue Code, who's sort of like a hub for all the corporations, pushes this out on us. And then if you go to a job at a corporation and you say, well, I want a job, but I'm not going to sign your W-4, they'll say, well, then we're not going to hire you. Why is that? If they're a private company, they're not going to hire you if you don't pay quote unquote federal taxes, which aren't really federal. Labor, mineral lands and mining, navigation in navigable waters. Are you required to have some kind of license to go out into the waterways or to pilot or be a captain of a boat? Well, it was never passed into positive law, meaning it's a contract. You're contracting, you're applying through the Coast Guard, and the Coast Guard creates these regulations. They write these regulations. They probably have some private corporations help them out writing these corporations, and they pass it off and say, well, you can't do this and you can't do that unless you sign our papers. And if you do, then we're going to put you in jail. Title 34, crime control and law enforcement. Public health and welfare. Public lands. Public lands, the federal government never had the right to take any lands from anyone. This may be a contract between the states and the federal government to allow the federal government to sell or buy some lands to give to retired military officers, because way back in, I think, the early 1800s, one of the benefits to being an officer in the military was that when you retired, you got like 100 or 500 acres or something like that. So the states would allow that. The states, you're protecting us, we'll give you some acreage. And this was just a contract, but it's not in the Constitution. There's nothing in the Constitution about the federal government having control over public lands in any way, shape, or form. Railroads, also not a positive law. Telecommunications, territories and insular possessions, Title 48, not a positive law. War and national defense, voting and elections. Okay, people cry, they miscounted the votes. Nobody voted for Biden, yet he's president, on and on and on. Well, Title 52, voting in elections, not a positive law. So if you look at any of these things and then you start asking yourself, well, if these aren't positive laws, they're not constitutional, and the courts can only see evidence um, from a actual law that's been actually passed, a court of the United States, that's the constitutional court of the United States. What court are you going into when you sue the government for um, a violation of your agricultural rights, or the IRS, or Commerce and Trade, or something, banks and banking? When someone sues them, where are they suing at if they're not suing in a federal court, an actual federal court doing actual federal constitutional things? How are we suing them? Well, they're administering contracts. That's all they're doing, is administering contracts. They're not acting constitutionally. They're not acting under their oath. These people come out and they say, well, they don't have an oath. They don't have an oath. They don't have an oath on file. Well, who cares? If they're acting under Title 15, Commerce and Trade, an employee of a private corporation that's doing business with the federal government, then they have no requirement to have an oath. The employees have no requirement to have an oath. They can take an oath. Anybody can take an oath, but if you don't have an official constitutional office, there's no point in it. You can have an oath all day long, or you cannot have an oath. It doesn't matter, because you're not in a constitutional office. You don't have constitutional power. You're not following anything that's been properly enacted by an actual government, or actual elected, because you didn't elect these people. You're not actually um, dealing with people who were elected into official offices with constitutional power, with sovereignty, with the right to do certain things. You're not dealing with those people. You're just dealing with regular people, employees who have some sort of weird relationship with the federal government, where they're not actually doing federal government things. They're private corporations doing business with the federal government. They're contractors. Okay, domestic security. I mean, how many trillions and trillions and trillions of trillions and trillions of dollars have they taken from us? And how many people have they put in prison? And how many families have they torn apart? And how much property have they taken from people using an internal revenue code? Using the fact that you can't get a job without signing a contract and agreeing to pay taxes that you're not actually required constitutionally to pay. I don't know. Sounds fishy. What do you guys think? Keeping this video short. Leave a comment if you like, and if you don't agree with what I say, or you don't believe with what I say, then just look for yourself. It's all right here. And reginfo.gov. Go check out that website. See what you can find over there.